Assalamu alaikum. Did you know that the modern welfare state comes from the Muslims? So during the caliphate of Umar ibn al-Khattab, may Allah have mercy upon him, he adopted a system from the Sassanids of which was used to pay soldiers and public sector workers, mainly people, government officials and people working within. It was a very bureaucratic system that the Sassanids had. So he decided to take it and use it to distribute it amongst for the zakat amongst those who needed it within the caliphate. Because the caliphate had now got too big, he couldn't do it personally, and he was wary. If anyone knows Omar, you'll know how wary he was of people he'd appointed to certain positions like governors for their responsibilities. And I'll get to why that is at the end. But there's a few stories. So to start with, we had the child benefit, the first case of child benefit in history that we know, recorded with a case. He was giving milk originally to mothers who had weaned, or he was giving a certain allowance to mothers who had weaned their children off breast milk. And one day, if anyone who knows Omar knows that he used to go out on night journeys because he knew that people feared he was the caliph, so they feared to criticize him to his face. So he used to go out and, he used to dress like a beggar, and that was just how he usually dressed anyway, but no one knew who he was. He used to go around and try and listen to people's problems and their insults. So one time, a few nights, he used to go past this house and he'd hear this baby always crying. And he had a bit of a temper, Omar. So he knocked on the door and he said, why is your baby crying? You're an evil mother. He often did things without thinking, said things before he think with his temper. It's probably the one criticism we could have of him. And the mother said, it's not my fault, it's that Khalif Omar, he's made this stipulation that once my child is off breast milk, I can get an allowance towards him. And I'm trying to wean my child off breast milk. And when Omar found out the age of the child, he was shocked. And because the child obviously was not ready to be weaned off breast milk, and that was where the problem was coming. So the next day when he led the prayer, he was crying so much leading the prayer that they say they could not hear what he was saying. And then he said, "Oh Omar, how many children have died because of this rule that you've made?" And then he changed the rule that every mother, whether their child was weaning or not, will get this allowance. So the first case of child benefit. There's another case. The first case of what you could say incapacity or pension. It's kind of a combination of the two, which is he was walking down one of the roads and he came across a beggar, Jewish man who was begging within the caliphate. And he was like, why is this man begging? Omar was very against having beggars in the street. He couldn't understand it. So he spoke to the man said, it's not my fault. I've worked all my life, but now I'm an old man, I can't work anymore, and I just haven't got the capabilities to look after myself. Omar again was shocked, and he couldn't believe it. This man worked all his life, and now he's still got nothing. So Omar said, every man who's reached a certain age where he's incapable of working, he will be now given an allowance. That's the first, you could say, pension, although it's slightly different because you didn't pay into a pension scheme in the same way. I guess you paid your zakah, or in this man's case it would have been the Christian one. I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but their equivalent of zakah that they would pay. And then another case was effectively he came across again Christians, this time not the Jewish. And they were lepers and they were in pain because of their leprosy, and they couldn't afford the medicines needed to lighten their pain. So Omar went to take money from what was called the Beit al-Mal, the treasury, the house of money. Beit al-Mal means, and he took that money and sent it to these people who needed it, and he started doing that, I believe, regularly. So it was the first form of healthcare. And later on, during, I don't know if it was the Umayyads or the Abbasids, I think it was the Umayyads, they began the first hospitals, public hospitals that we know of. So there's a lot of this. But then the final case, and this is where it really gets quite interesting in my view, is the Bedouins. A lot of the Bedouins would be struggling when they get old. Traditionally, in many cultures across Arabs and Amazi, the Bedouin, when they get old, they get left behind. It sounds cool, but that was just tradition. So he used to send basically a social worker, the first case of social workers, paid for by the caliphate. You could say the state if you're looking at it through modern thing, although there's a slightly problematic in its own way. And he sent these public sector workers, these social workers, to go and look after these elderly Bedouin and take care of their needs. So where does he get this from? Well, first of all, he gets it from Islam. Islam, the Prophet said, the leader of the people serves the people. So he did not see himself as the people serving him. He served Allah and he served the people. He served Allah through the people. And you have to understand the mentality of Umar. Umar believed that he was responsible for the suffering of the people, like in any case. So there's a case where he used to go out again at night and he used to tidy this old blind lady's house, and she didn't know who he was, and he was followed. I've heard the story, the narration with Khalid or Ali, but one of the two followed him, and afterwards they asked for forgiveness from Omar. We followed you because we were suspicious of what you were doing, and when we found out you were doing this, the saying goes, you've made it impossible for anyone or any Khalif to follow in your footsteps. And Omar says, oh, what do you mean? And again, there's slightly two versions, but if a donkey was to walk down the street and stumble and break its leg, I will be responsible for it on the Day of Judgment. Allah will ask me why I didn't pave that road better. So this is the mentality that he has, that he's responsible for all the suffering. The opposite of most of the leaders now, who make excuses for anything that goes wrong in his view, even if he couldn't really justify any way that it was his fault. For him, just being Khalif made it his fault, and he'll be answerable for it on the Day of Judgment. And if he can't, so all the suffering was responsible, and if he couldn't administer it personally, he had to take this system and build it around to be able to take care of the needs of all the people. And this is why Umar ibn al-Khattab, just to finish up on, he said, the Prophet said one thing of him when he was alive, may Allah's peace and blessings be upon him, of Umar. And he said, if there was to be a prophet after me, it would be Umar. This is one of the greatest thing I can think a person could say about a prophet could say about a person. If there was a prophet after me, it would be Umar. We know the prophets are the highest of all people, and so that, I think that is just absolutely beautiful. And when you look at the example of Umar, it's not hard to see that within ourselves. We don't need to be prophets to see what a beautiful person he was, because those attributes were amazing. He was a man who the Prophet, may Allah's peace and blessings be upon him, said when he'd take a path, Shaitan would take another path, because that's how great this man was. And may Allah have mercy upon him, and may Allah grant us the chance to meet Umar ibn al-Khattab in Jannah, and maybe be able to discuss some of these things with him, inshallah.